The alarm that echoed through the vast corridors of the Galactic Conclave's high command was not one of urgency but disbelief. The council chamber, a circular room brimming with holographic displays of countless star systems, was alive with panicked murmurs. The cause of their distress was a single, haunting message that had spread like wildfire through the galactic network. Earth has gone silent. For centuries, Earth had been the enigma of the galaxy. Its people, though relatively new to interstellar civilization, had an uncanny ability to turn every disadvantage into a triumph. They thrived in adversity, found solutions in chaos, and exhibited a resilience that other species both admired and feared. Humans were unpredictable, a wild card in galactic politics. And now, without warning, their homeworld was quiet. Representatives of the most advanced civilizations convened hastily to decipher the situation. The crystalline diplomat of the Glithrax clicked nervously, its multifaceted body shimmering in shades of concern. This is unprecedented. Earth has been a constant presence, a stubborn reminder of the unpredictable. For it to vanish, something is terribly wrong. Across the chamber, a representative of the hulking Braggoran species growled. Perhaps it is their end. Their defiance has finally caught up with them. A flicker of static interrupted the discussion, and a figure materialized in the center of the room. It was Admiral Arlen Grayson of the United Earth Command. His sharp gaze swept the chamber, his posture radiating the composed intensity humans were known for. But something in his expression sent a chill through the gathered delegates. Admiral Grayson. The Glithrax diplomat clicked hurriedly. We were discussing. You should prepare yourselves, Grayson interrupted. His voice was calm, but the weight of his words was suffocating. The silence of Earth is not a weakness. It's a warning. The room fell into stunned silence. Before anyone could probe further, Grayson's transmission cut off, leaving only a flickering image of Earth's orbital defenses, now dark and unmoving, on the main holographic display. The room erupted into chaos. In the heart of the galaxy, far from the political squabbles of the conclave, an independent freighter named Solar Drift cruised through the trade lanes. Its captain, Reyna Salas, was a resourceful woman with a sharp mind and an unshakable loyalty to her crew. The Solar Drift wasn't much to look at, a patched-up relic of a ship held together by determination and duct tape, but it had served its crew well through countless scrapes. The freighter's current cargo was an eclectic mix of supplies destined for a neutral station. However, the real treasure aboard wasn't the crates of goods but the ship's pilot, an eccentric AI named Bix. Programmed with a mix of outdated algorithms and an experimental sense of humor, Bix was both the bane and the delight of the crew. Captain, Bix chimed, his voice dripping with exaggerated cheer. You might want to see this. Reyna groaned. She was in the middle of recalibrating the ship's ancient navigation system, which, as usual, was threatening to malfunction. Bix, unless the universe is imploding, it can wait. Funny you should say that, Bix replied. Because I'm detecting something unusual. Reyna's instincts kicked in. She abandoned the navigation console and strode to the bridge, where the holographic display showed a live feed from the ship's sensors. What she saw made her heart race. The trade lanes ahead were eerily empty, save for the wreckage of several ships drifting aimlessly. Pirates? Reyna asked, scanning the data. Negative, Bix replied. These ships weren't attacked. They just stopped. Reyna frowned. Stopped? No signs of combat. Systems failed simultaneously, leaving them dead in space. Whatever hit them, it wasn't anything I've seen before. The crew gathered on the bridge, tension thick in the air. Beside Reyna, her second-in-command, a no-nonsense engineer named Tarek, studied the readings. This isn't natural. It's deliberate. Agreed, Reyna said, her mind racing. Bix, plot us a course around the affected area. We're not taking any chances. As Bix complied, a transmission crackled through the comms. It was fragmented, barely audible, but the words that came through sent a chill down Reyna's spine. Earth silent, incoming. The transmission cut off, replaced by a deafening silence. Reyna wasn't one to scare easily, but the events unfolding around her were pushing the limits of her composure. The eerie silence of the trade lanes, the ghostly wreckage of abandoned ships, and the cryptic transmission, all of it pointed to a larger threat. "Captain," Bix said, his usually cheerful tone replaced by one of unease, "we've got company." The crew braced themselves as a massive vessel emerged from the darkness, its silhouette unlike anything they'd seen before. It wasn't a pirate ship or a conclave patrol. Its design was alien, sleek yet ominous, with an almost organic quality. Before Reyna could react, the alien ship projected a shimmering field that enveloped the solar drift. The ship's systems flickered and died, leaving the crew in a powerless vessel drifting in space. "Well, that's rude," Bix quipped, his voice strained. "Options?" Reyna asked, her voice steady despite the growing dread. "None that don't involve certain death," Tarek muttered. The alien ship extended a tendril-like appendage, connecting to the solar drift. A moment later, the crew was bathed in a soft, golden light. Reyna instinctively reached for her sidearm, but before she could draw it, a voice echoed in her mind. "You are human!" The voice was neither male nor female, and it carried an otherworldly quality that made Reyna's skin crawl. "Yes, we are," Reyna replied cautiously. "And who are you?" "We are the Void-born," the voice replied. "We seek understanding of your kind." Reyna exchanged a wary glance with her crew. "You're attacking ships and cutting off Earth to understand us?" "Earth's silence is not our doing," the Void-born said. "It is your warning to the galaxy." Reyna's pulse quickened. "What warning?" The light around the crew pulsed rhythmically, as if the Void-born were considering their response. Finally, the voice returned. "Earth's silence is a prelude. The spark that will ignite the galaxy." Before Reyna could demand an explanation, the light faded, and the alien ship vanished as abruptly as it had appeared. The solar drift systems roared back to life, and the crew was left in stunned silence. "What just happened?" Tarek asked, breaking the silence. Reyna didn't answer immediately. Her mind was racing, piecing together fragments of information. Earth's silence, the abandoned ships, the Void-born's cryptic message, it all pointed to a single conclusion. "Earth isn't just silent," Reyna said, her voice steady but grim. "It's preparing for something. And whatever it is, the galaxy isn't ready." The silence of Earth reverberated across the galaxy like a muted scream, a void that refused to be ignored. For centuries, humanity had been a chaotic, unpredictable force, often underestimated but never truly defeated. Now, their sudden withdrawal from galactic affairs had left a vacuum, one that every major power scrambled to interpret. But the answers remained elusive, and the tension escalated. Reyna Salas, captain of the Solar Drift, couldn't shake the haunting words of the Void-born. Earth's silence wasn't their doing, it was a warning. A spark that would ignite the galaxy. Whatever it meant, Reyna felt the weight of it pressing down on her as her freighter limped toward a nearby neutral station for repairs. "Bix, give me an update," Reyna said, leaning over the bridge console. The AI's holographic avatar materialized, its digital face unusually solemn. "Well, the good news is we're not dead. The bad news? The ship's hyperdrive is barely holding together, and I'm detecting erratic energy readings ahead." Reyna glanced at her second-in-command, Tarek, whose frown deepened as he examined the data. "Erratic how?" he asked. "Think of it as a cosmic temper tantrum," Bix replied. "Localized distortions in space-time, likely artificial. And they're increasing in intensity." Reyna sighed. "Great. Just what we need." Before she could give the order to divert course, a distress signal crackled over the comms. The message was faint, garbled, but unmistakably human. "This is the freighter Silver Horizon. Engines failing, need assistance." Tarek looked up, his expression grim. "They're close, less than 10 minutes out." Reyna hesitated. They were barely holding things together themselves, and the thought of veering into another potentially hazardous situation was less than appealing. But leaving fellow humans stranded wasn't an option. "Plot a course, Bix," she ordered. "We'll see what we can do." The Silver Horizon was adrift in the middle of a chaotic energy field. Pulses of light and distortion rippled across the void, making it seem as if space itself were unraveling. As the solar drift approached, Reyna could see the other freighter's engines flickering weakly, their power core struggling to stabilize. "This field is dangerous," Tarek warned. "We'll need to be quick." "Agreed," Reyna said. "Bix, can you maintain a stable position?" "I can try," the AI replied. "But if things get dicey, we're pulling out." The crew worked quickly, extending a docking tether to the silver horizon. Reyna and Tarek suited up and crossed to the other ship, their magnetic boots clanking against the metal hull. Inside, the air was thin and cold, the emergency lights casting eerie shadows on the walls. "Hello?" Reyna called out, her voice echoing in the empty corridors. "This is Captain Reyna Salas of the Solar Drift. Is anyone here?" A faint noise drew her attention, a weak, rasping cough. Following the sound, they found a man slumped against the control panel, his face pale and drawn. He wore the uniform of a freighter captain, and his badge identified him as Elias Vorn. "Captain Vorn," Reyna said, kneeling beside him. "We're here to help." Vorn's eyes fluttered open, and he gripped her arm weakly. You shouldn't have come." "What happened here?" Reyna asked. Vorn coughed again, his breathing labored. "It's not safe. The energy field, it's not random. It's testing us." "Testing?" Tarek repeated, his tone skeptical. Vorn nodded, his gaze unfocused. "Something is watching. Studying us. And it's using the field to push us to our limits." Reyna exchanged a glance with Tarek, her unease growing. "We need to get you out of here. Can you walk?" Vorn shook his head. "Leave me. Save yourselves. If you stay too long, it'll—" His words were cut off by a violent tremor that shook the ship. Reyna barely had time to steady herself before a piercing, otherworldly sound filled the air, a resonant hum that seemed to vibrate through her very bones. "What the hell is that?" Tarek shouted, his voice barely audible over the noise. Bix's voice crackled over the comms. Captain? We've got a problem. The energy field is destabilizing, and something's emerging from it. Something big." Reyna and Tarek barely made it back to the solar drift before the energy field erupted in a blinding flash of light. As their freighter pulled away, a massive structure materialized at the center of the distortion, a monolithic vessel, unlike anything in the galactic database. Its surface was dark and reflective, absorbing the surrounding light like a black hole. "Is that Void-born?" Tarek asked, his voice tinged with fear. "No," Reyna said, her eyes fixed on the ship. "It's something else." The alien vessel began to emit a series of rhythmic pulses, each one sending ripples through the surrounding space. It wasn't just a display of power, it was a message. "Bix, can you translate that?" Reyna asked. The AI hesitated. "It's not a language I recognize, but I think it's a warning." "A warning about what?" Tarek demanded. Before Bix could answer, the alien ship fired a beam of energy that tore through the silver horizon like paper. The freighter disintegrated in an instant, leaving nothing but scattered debris. "Full power to the engines!" Reyna shouted. "Get us out of here!" The solar drift surged forward, narrowly avoiding a second blast from the alien vessel. As they sped away, Reyna's mind raced. Whatever this new threat was, it wasn't just testing humanity. It was preparing for something far worse. Hours later, the crew gathered in the mess hall, their faces pale and drawn. The destruction of the silver horizon and the emergence of the alien vessel had left them shaken, but Reyna knew they couldn't afford to dwell on their fear. "Whatever's happening, it's bigger than us," she said, addressing her crew. "We need to warn the Conclave. They need to know what we've seen." "And then what?" Tarek asked. "Even if they believe us, what can they do? If Earth's silence is connected to this, whatever this is, we're in over our heads." Reyna nodded. "Maybe. But we can't just sit back and wait for the galaxy to burn. If Earth has a plan, we need to figure out what it is. And if they don't, we'll make our own." The room fell silent as her words sank in. They were just a small crew on a battered freighter, but Reyna knew that even the smallest spark could ignite a fire. And right now, the galaxy needed a spark. Bix, she said, turning to the AI. Plot a course to the nearest conclave outpost. It's time we made some noise of our own. The solar drift sliced through the fabric of space like a lone wolf, heading toward the conclave's nearest outpost on Arcanis Prime. For a crew of freighter operators with no formal ties to galactic politics, this was uncharted territory. But Reyna Salas had made a decision. The galaxy needed to hear their warning, and the conclave was the only entity with the reach and resources to act. Or so she hoped. The crew was tense, their usual banter replaced by uneasy silence. The memory of the alien ship and the destruction of the Silver Horizon loomed over them like a storm cloud. Even Bix, normally irreverent and chatty, had grown unusually subdued. ETA to Arcanis Prime is 30 minutes, the AI said, his voice lacking its usual humor. I suggest we prepare for the worst. Tarek, seated at the engineering console, scowled. For once, I agree with Bix. The conclave isn't exactly known for being swift or decisive. By the time they act, we could be dealing with a full-scale invasion. Then we'll make them listen, Reyna said firmly. She leaned back in the captain's chair, staring at the star-streaked view outside the bridge. They'll have no choice once they hear what we've seen. A sudden proximity alert interrupted the conversation. Red lights flared across the control panels, and Bix's holographic avatar materialized, his expression alarmed. Captain? We've got company. Reyna shot forward, her eyes locking onto the display. A formation of sleek, triangular ships had emerged from hyperspace behind them, their dark hulls glinting menacingly. Conclave patrol? Tarek asked, though the answer was clear. Reyna shook her head. No markings. And they're powering up weapons. The lead ship opened a channel, and a distorted voice crackled through the comms. Freighter Solar Drift, you are carrying classified information. Surrender immediately, or face destruction. Reyna's jaw tightened. Bix, evasive maneuvers. Tarek, get the shields up. The solar drift lurched as Bix spun the freighter into a series of sharp maneuvers, narrowly avoiding the first volley of plasma fire. The smaller ship wasn't built for combat, but its agility was its saving grace. The pursuing vessels, however, were faster and far better armed. We can't outrun them, Tarek said, his voice strained as he diverted power to the shields. They'll tear us apart. Reyna's mind raced. They needed a plan, and fast. Her eyes flicked to the navigation display, where a dense asteroid field lay ahead. A risky option, but it was all they had. Bix, take us into the asteroid field, she ordered. Let's see if they can keep up. You know I love a good game of chicken, Bix quipped, his humor returning under pressure. The freighter banked sharply, diving into the chaotic maze of spinning rocks and debris. The asteroid field was a swirling nightmare of jagged rocks and drifting ice. The solar drift weaved through the obstacles with desperate precision, its hull groaning under the strain. Behind them, the pursuing ships struggled to maintain their formation, their larger size making them less maneuverable. Captain, they're still on us! Tarek shouted as another blast rocked the freighter. The shields were holding, but only barely. Keep them guessing, Reyna replied. Bix, can you use the asteroids as cover? Already on it, the AI said, his voice tinged with determination. The solar drift darted behind a massive chunk of rock, its engines cutting momentarily to reduce its heat signature. The pursuing ships hesitated, their scanners struggling to locate the freighter amidst the debris. Reyna took the opportunity to study their attackers more closely. The triangular ships bore no insignia, but their movements were precise, coordinated. These weren't pirates or mercenaries, they were professionals. Whoever had sent them wanted the solar drift silenced, and quickly. They're regrouping, Tarek warned. If we don't come up with something, they'll corner us. Reyna's gaze fell on a particularly unstable asteroid ahead, its surface riddled with cracks and glowing fissures of volatile energy. An idea formed in her mind, a dangerous, borderline suicidal idea. Tarek, what happens if we hit that asteroid with a focused energy burst? she asked. Tarek followed her gaze and grimaced. It'll blow. Big enough to take them out, maybe us too. We'll have to time it perfectly, Reyna said. Bix, can you target it? Targeting? Easy. Surviving? Questionable, Bix replied. But I love a good challenge. Reyna ignored the AI's sarcasm. Tarek, reroute all power to the engines. We'll need every ounce of speed to outrun the blast. The pursuing ships were closing in, their weapons charging for another salvo. Reyna's hands tightened on the controls as she gave the order. Fire on my mark. 3, 2, 1, now! The solar drift unleashed a concentrated burst from its remaining weapon systems, striking the asteroid dead center. For a split second, nothing happened. Then, with a deafening roar, the asteroid exploded in a blinding cascade of light and energy. The shockwave tore through the asteroid field, obliterating everything in its path. The solar drift surged forward, its engines straining as it raced to escape the blast radius. The pursuing ships weren't as lucky. The explosion caught them mid-maneuver, reducing them to smoldering debris. The freighter emerged from the asteroid field, battered but intact. The crew let out a collective breath of relief, though the tension remained palpable. Hours later, the solar drift reached Arcani's prime. The conclave outpost loomed ahead, its sleek towers glowing against the planet's surface. Reyna guided the freighter into the docking bay, her mind already racing with how to present their case. Inside the outpost, they were met by a delegation of conclave officials, their expressions a mix of suspicion and curiosity. Reyna wasted no time, presenting the evidence they had gathered: the destruction of the Silver Horizon, the emergence of the alien vessel, and the attack they just survived. You're asking us to believe that Earth's silence is tied to an imminent galactic threat? One official asked skeptically. I'm not asking you to believe anything, Reyna shot back. I'm showing you the facts. The galaxy is on the brink of something catastrophic, and if you don't act, it'll be too late. The room fell silent as the officials reviewed the data. Finally, one of them, a tall, silver-haired woman, spoke. Captain Salas, your story is troubling. We'll launch an investigation, but it will take time. We don't have time, Reyna said, her frustration boiling over. Earth has gone silent, and the galaxy is already reacting. Whatever's coming, it's coming fast. The silver-haired woman studied her for a long moment. Very well. We'll prepare for the worst. But if you're wrong... I'm not, Reyna said firmly. As the meeting concluded, Reyna felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. They had delivered their warning, but whether the conclave would act in time was another question entirely. And deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that the true danger was still ahead. The conclave's high command convened in a war room deep within the sprawling towers of Arcani's prime. Holographic displays illuminated the chamber, showing projections of known star systems, troop movements, and the grim remnants of ships caught in the unexplained energy disruptions. The warnings delivered by Captain Reyna Salas and her crew had stirred the hornet's nest of galactic politics, forcing even the most skeptical members of the Council to prepare for a threat they didn't fully understand. Reyna, Tarek, and Bix stood at the edge of the chamber, dwarfed by the imposing presence of conclave generals and ambassadors. It felt surreal to stand in a room where galactic wars had been waged with words and strategies, knowing they had been the spark that lit this fire. Captain Salas, a tall, silver-haired general began, her voice resonating with authority. Your evidence has convinced us of the severity of the situation. However, we remain divided on one critical question: what is Earth doing? Why would humanity, of all species, fall silent at such a time? Reyna took a deep breath. I don't know, she admitted. But what I do know is that Earth's silence isn't surrender. It's preparation. If they've gone dark, it's because they're planning something, and we need to be ready for whatever's coming. The room erupted into murmurs, some skeptical, others concerned. The void-born encounter and the alien vessel's attack weighed heavily on their minds, but the lack of concrete answers left them paralyzed. We don't have time to argue, Reyna snapped, her voice cutting through the noise. While we sit here debating, More ships are being destroyed, more systems destabilized. We've seen the enemy's power, and if we wait for them to make the next move, it'll be too late." A heavy silence followed her words, broken only by the hum of the holograms. Finally, the silver-haired general nodded. "You've made your point, Captain. The Conclave will mobilize its fleets. But if Earth truly holds the key to this threat, you will lead the mission to re-establish contact." The solar drift was refitted for the journey to Earth with cutting-edge technology provided by the Conclave. Its battered hull gleamed with new armor, and its engines hummed with upgraded power cores. Reyna stood on the bridge, her crew busy making final preparations. Tarek adjusted the new shield generators while Bix tested the enhanced navigation systems. "Never thought I'd see the Conclave actually listen to someone like us," Tarek muttered. "Makes me think they're more scared than they're letting on." "They should be," Reyna replied. "Whatever's happening, it's bigger than anything the galaxy has faced before. And we're heading straight into the heart of it." As the ship powered up, a fleet of Conclave warships formed an escort around them. Their mission was twofold: protect the solar drift and, if necessary, respond to any threat Earth might pose. It was a stark reminder of how precarious their situation was. Even the Conclave wasn't sure if humanity was friend or foe. The journey to Earth was eerily uneventful. The trade lanes were deserted, and the usual chatter on galactic frequencies had gone quiet. It was as if the galaxy itself was holding its breath. When the solar drift finally reached the Sol system, the sight that greeted them was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Earth was surrounded by a massive orbital defense grid. The satellites and platforms were silent, their weapons dormant, but their sheer scale was staggering. It was a fortress, and the message was clear: Earth had been preparing for war. "Captain," Bix said, his voice unusually subdued, "I'm detecting a signal. It's faint, but it's directed at us." "Let's hear it," Reyna ordered. The signal crackled to life, and a familiar voice filled the bridge. "This is Admiral Grayson of the United Earth Command. State your purpose and prepare for inspection." Reyna leaned toward the comm. "Admiral Grayson, this is Captain Reyna Salas of the freighter Solar Drift. We're here on behalf of the Conclave too." "You shouldn't have come," Grayson interrupted, his tone sharp. "Turn back. Now." Reyna's stomach tightened. "Admiral, the galaxy is falling apart. We've seen ships destroyed, systems destabilized, and unknown forces emerging. We need answers, and Earth is the only place that—" "You don't understand what you're dealing with," Grayson said, his voice grim. "Earth isn't preparing for war. We're trying to stop one." Before Reyna could respond, a massive energy surge erupted from the planet's surface. The orbital defense grid roared to life, targeting a point in space just beyond the moon. In an instant, the alien vessel from the asteroid field materialized, accompanied by dozens of similar ships. They had been waiting, lurking in the shadows, and now they had come. Chaos erupted as the Conclave fleet opened fire. The alien ships responded with devastating precision, their weapons slicing through the void like blades of pure energy. The solar drift darted between the warring forces, its upgraded systems barely keeping it intact. "Bix, get us out of here!" Reyna shouted as a blast narrowly missed the ship. "I'm trying, but these things are faster than a bureaucrat dodging accountability," the AI quipped, his humor masking the tension. On the main display, the alien ships began to spread out, encircling the planet. Earth's defense grid fought back, but it was clear the battle wouldn't last long without intervention. "Captain," Tarek said urgently, "the aliens are targeting the planetary core. If they destabilize it—" Reyna didn't need him to finish. The destruction of Earth would send shockwaves through the galaxy, both literal and symbolic. Humanity's stronghold would become their grave, and the aliens would solidify their dominance. "Admiral Grayson," Reyna said over the comm, "tell us what to do. How can we help?" Grayson's face appeared on the display, his expression resolute. "There's only one way to end this. We've been developing a failsafe, a weapon powerful enough to neutralize their fleet. But it requires a manual trigger." Reyna's blood ran cold. And whoever triggers it won't survive. Grayson nodded. You wanted to know why Earth went silent. This is why. We've been preparing for the ultimate sacrifice. The calm fell silent as the enormity of the situation sank in. Reyna's crew looked to her, their faces pale but determined. We're not turning back, she said firmly. If humanity's survival depends on this, we're all in. The solar drift raced toward the planet's surface, weaving through the chaos of the battle. At the heart of Earth's defense network was the failsafe, a massive fusion core buried deep within a fortified bunker. Reyna and her crew fought their way to the control chamber, dodging alien drones and automated defenses. When they reached the core, Grayson's voice came through their comms. Once you activate it, there's no turning back. The energy pulse will destroy everything within range, including the alien fleet. And the people on Earth? Reyna asked. They're safe, Grayson said. The bunkers will protect them. But the surface, it'll be uninhabitable for centuries. Reyna nodded, her heart heavy. Understood. Tarek worked quickly to prime the core, while Bix interfaced with the system to synchronize the detonation. The alien ships were closing in, their weapons targeting the facility. Captain, Bix said, his voice uncharacteristically soft. It's ready. Reyna took a deep breath, her gaze sweeping over her crew. This is it. Whatever happens, it's been an honor. She placed her hand on the activation panel, and the core began to hum with energy. The final moments stretched into eternity, as the alien ships descended, their weapons glowing with destructive intent. Then the failsafe detonated. A blinding wave of energy erupted from the core, engulfing the alien fleet in a brilliant cascade of light. The shockwave rippled across space, tearing through the enemy vessels and leaving nothing but silence in its wake. When the light faded, the solar drift was gone, and Earth's surface was a scorched wasteland. But humanity had survived, and the galaxy had been saved. In the years that followed, the story of the solar drift and its crew became legend, a testament to the resilience and sacrifice of humanity. Earth remained silent, but its spark burned brighter than ever in the hearts of those who remembered.